I'm in a very conservative part of the country. Even the progressives are very conservative. There's a lot of talk, but so I don't have a science degree, so I'm not a PhD. But as I was learning this stuff, I had the ability to go to all these conferences, and I learned things very quickly. So I could go out and go learn it. And the whole idea was to go out and learn all this stuff so that I could bring it back here, right? I'm not trying to make myself wealthy. I'm actually trying to put myself out of business. If we had lots of people who knew what I know, I could retire. So finding, I don't know, I have constant pushback. Like there's the old boys club, right? That they use chemicals and they do this and it's what's taught in the agronomy schools and blah, blah, blah. And then we have the new boys club that is the progressives and, you know, people who had a science degree from 50 years ago where they just repeated back what they were told, but somehow that means they know more than I do. When I've been going to all of the conferences for the last dozen years to learn all this stuff. So I try to just be open. I've been really impressed by Kiss the Ground, that they've been able to build so quickly, including having speakers have gardeners and that sort of thing who aren't really doing anything new, but they've brought more people into the fold by sort of highlighting them. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out how to have a larger effect. You know, I'm speaking to every group I can speak to. I have the social entrepreneurship. I have a student right now who's working with another group that doesn't really want to put the time, they want to lead, but they don't want to put the time in to learn it. So I'm educating the student each week, an hour at a time, and then he can lead them. So I'm not sure exactly what I need, but I need to have more impact. And I don't know how to grow that impact. So, yeah. I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I kind of avoid Facebook, because there's just so much nonsense, and I don't have time to fight nonsense. So I may dive on there just to talk to like Sarah Savory, Ellen Savory's daughter, and ask her a question, or you know, various other people who know a lot of things about grazing animals, etc. So LinkedIn has been better, and I sort of went on there as a way of showing how I have expertise in various things. So I have more people outside of Kansas City who know I know what I'm talking about than I do in Kansas City. You know, it's almost one of those things of like, well, you can't know anything if you're from here, because we must all know the same thing because we're all from here. You know, I almost feel
Christ
like
was shamed in his own land, right?
Yeah.
So.
Familiarity breeds contempt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah, I don't know. Are there more ways that I can like boost how people think of me? I don't know. I'm just I'm doing everything I can think of doing, and I'm working way too many hours a week. Um, so yeah, any suggestions I would greatly appreciate.
Hilary, I feel, and I think we can all relate to some degree or another. Um, Putting in a lot of hours and feeling like you're just not getting the results that you're wanting. So I just want to say that you're not the only one that's going through that, right? As
Thank
an
you.
entrepreneur. Um, but Suzanne mentioned social, and if you want to bring up any more into that, it's a big rabbit hole, I think, for a lot of us. But one thing that I would, it sounds like mostly credibility is what you're feeling, right? And some of it, there's this imposter syndrome that we have as entrepreneurs. Some of that credibility just comes from our ability to carry ourselves in the space that we're in, right? And sometimes it's easier to carry ourselves in spaces that no one knows us. And so maybe that's why you're kind of seeing that. Then when someone in our own community already looks at you in a certain way. So that could be a piece of it. As you're looking to build credibility, I think the first place to start is always with within yourself, right? And really truly trying to find the places and pieces that you can share your message from your whole heart, and it might not be in your own community, right? So I just wanted to mention that, but also to not go down every rabbit hole that we possibly can when we're trying to explore it, because it could just be so tiresome, right? But really just stick with what we feel our strengths are, and then grow, especially when we're creating messaging for our business and brand. It's a lot about doing what you're good at first, and working in the channels that you're good at first. And when you start creating content, that content can go almost everywhere in just slight changes and tweaks. So like if you want to move into other things, get your core message right and get good at sharing it in a certain medium on a certain channel, and really focus in on honing that. And once you feel like you've got that message and you're seeing it, even if it's a small crowd in the beginning, because your channels are still small, but you can see that people are resonating with the message. Really, truly try to find a place where you can get that message honed in within a medium and channel, and then that same content can go pretty much anywhere. You just have to place it in those things. So dive into something that you're curious about. I'm curious about learning about LinkedIn a little bit more, so I'm going to see how I can share that message on LinkedIn and get the similar feedback or get similar results that I've done in this channel that I've already optimized, right? That's what we kind of call it in the marketing world, I guess, or in the messaging world, or communications. David, it's good to have you as well. Thanks for hopping on. I don't think you've ever made it to a think tank or a mastermind.
It's well, not in a year, 18 months probably anyway. Yeah, good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
Sorry to be so late. I just picked up the email and stuff.
So one of the, I'm a really good student. I mean, I wasn't until I was like 30, and then all of a sudden it's like, and you always use references, right? Like, here's a place that really knows this stuff. Here's where I learned it from. I actually got called a name dropper on a Zoom call when I was saying, here's a company that does this really well. We can do this. Da-da. Here's a group that does this really well. I always mention Kiss the Ground, etc. I mean, there are a lot of things you have to learn to ignore. And my first impulse is ignore that. It's just silliness, but does that take away from my credibility when I say, I learned this from Leighton Morrison, in California. I learned this from, this person. Nicole Masters, we have people, oh, everybody has to read Love of Soil. Okay, so if you're reading Love of Soil, here's what you have to think about when you're reading that. So yeah, should I just like say this stuff like, I know it doesn't matter whether you understand where it came from? I think people should get credit for the work they've done.
Can I break in? I have
Yeah.
some thoughts and advice and ideas? So first of all, definitely I agree with Josh on the imposter syndrome. Like, do not, like, absolutely, haters gonna hate, you keep it moving, number one. Number two, maybe you want to do interviews with some industry leaders like Joel Salatin. Maybe you want to align with a food tank. Maybe you want to that one regenerative farm in Pennsylvania, where the Rodale Institute, where you align with these partners and then maybe you interview them. And by virtue of being a good interviewer or moderator, then it helps validate you and who you are, because you're asking the questions, the potent questions that are eliciting the responses that you want. But there are plenty of established organizations that would, first of all, everyone needs a platform. So if you want to go with like BIPOC farms, there's a whole rabbit hole you can go down with BIPOC farms. If there's legacy farms, there's a whole, thing that you can do there. So pick the niche, where you want to push into that you think, to me, pursuing any avenue to validate whatever these people are that look to invalidate you is definitely like, you got to go Michelle Obama and go, and when they go low, you go high. You just continue on your own thing. I also am taught by industry and definitely have held my own at tables with industry experts. So totally move past that place and just have the chutzpah to reach out to these organizations and to be aligned with them. And then it becomes, if you're at the table, if you're in the room and at the table, you're automatically validated and you're no longer fighting to be validated because you're there. But like I said, a great tool would be to maybe host a series of talks. And then in terms of the information that you have, if you have resources to any students and you can look to consolidate your messaging into infographics and things like that, because it seems like there's a teaching piece that you want to get across, then that's a super clear and low lift way to exercise. And then you become a resource page. Now you have people that are constantly retweeting you or posting you because you become this expert on this particular subject, and everyone loves to retweet an infographic. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, so I have a whole set of graphics that I did for the Pine Ridge Reservation on soil management through development and construction. So using that, like, as long as I take the Lakota words off of it, it's my information. So you're saying like make posts on Instagram or on
Yes.
LinkedIn with those graphics?
But also, like, very much now in sustainability, there's been different trends and waves. I'm located out of New York. And like a couple of years ago, it was about women. And then a year after that, it was about Black, during Black Lives Matter, it was about Black women. And so there's these certain waves and trends, but truthfully, all of sustainability needs to pay homage to our indigenous ancestors. So if you framed it around, going back to principles of indigenous people, then they now are going to co-sign and appreciate, you showcasing their plight and maybe their practices as, like, let's go back to the roots on this, to the people who truly knew how to do this. And in that respect, again, gross but trendy, where if you are sharing information that has its grounding and its foundation with indigenous people, that is super strong. And that is a foundational principle that a lot of sustainability movements are not grounded in, because they are moving forward in a white colonial savior sort of way. So if you're coming at it from these indigenous roots, you're ahead of the game. You're in
Okay.
front of, and no one can take you off your, your game, because this is the true root of it. Is these are the people that are most affected by what's happening, and sustainability is not owned by white people. They took it just like they did everything else.
Right.
Thanks, Susan. Mark, did you have something you wanted to add to Hilary's, or do you want to present oh, you're muted. Sorry. Present
It
a
was for
challenge.
presenting a challenge, so I can wait until it's my turn.
Okay, so I think we have Susan and then you for presenting a challenge. Hilary, so if there's anybody that's wants to chime in on Hilary's challenge here of building credibility for what she's doing, kind of stepping into the space, and there's a part of this is a messaging challenge as well that you're kind of working through. Please share, and then we can move on to more challenges as well. And there's a couple things I do want to add. Go ahead, Mark.
Hilary, like, for sure, you need to give credit to what people have as a thought, but just taking all those ideas and making sense of like a big soup is already something. So like your ability to able to boils down to like principles, although like you're inspired, but because nobody has never created anything, and we're just taking everything from the universe, and basically we're boiling down to through our experience and through our prism of life, like we're creating some new idea, but nothing is new. I mean, like all of those ideas. So the ability in communication, like you can throw so much information, and those information, if they are in a soup, like has no value. But the value is to be able to take all of those information to identify like the 3 or 4 or 5 very valuable information and say, hey, this is what is important. And that has a lot of value into communication. This is my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great feedback, Mark. Thank you. Anybody else want to share for Hilary?
I really
So-
appreciate it. Thank you all.
There is one thing that kind of goes along with Mark's comment as well. There's many ways that we can build credibility as an entrepreneur, especially if it sounds like, Hilary, it sounds like you're in that info entrepreneur, like you're sharing information, teaching. There's a lot of entrepreneurs, and a couple of people have brought this up in the space. So I'm going to name drop myself right as well. But Ryan Levesque, a marketing influencer that I follow often, and who else brought this up? Brendan Bouchard has brought this up, and what's his face? The really big speaker that does, what is his name? Tony Robbins. There we go. Tony Robbins is also kind of said this, because they're all in that same info space, sharing information. And Tony Robbins, he didn't really know what he was sharing, or didn't say he was an expert in what he was doing until much later, right? He just started doing it and showing up in that space, and he shared that story several times in that realm. But there's a pattern that these influencers have started to share, and I've noticed as well. What's the book Think and Grow Rich? Who's that written by? Napoleon Hill, right? Napoleon Hill is probably the first one that's introduced this concept, right? Napoleon Hill was someone that didn't really have the knowledge from his experience in general as a business owner, but what he did is he studied really intently those entrepreneurs around him, right? And he recognized patterns. And what is regeneration? What is permaculture? One of the philosophies is use and recognize, or start from patterns to details, and use and recognize. Anyways, I'm getting a little distracted there, but patterns are a key point. And if you can bring those patterns up and show those patterns, that's one way that you can you can be the influencer is by being able to recognize. Another person that's done that is, what's the author of Good to Great, Jim Collins, right? Jim Collins is another great example of he just studied, and his team started studying a tons of people and recognized patterns. And then he started teaching those patterns, right? And there's a meta lesson here is like, there's a pattern of people that gain their knowledge and their influence by being really good observers, right? And that's a type of entrepreneur, right? Some other people are going to be more, they are the ones that are the farmer that learns something, or the person that's a technician that learns something and does really good at it, and then realizes and steps back, I can teach other people how to do this, right? There's another type of entrepreneur that you can see that exists in the info arena, right? In sharing knowledge. So take it, it sounds like, Hilary, that you might be that type of entrepreneur. I am actually that type of entrepreneur where I recognize patterns from others and mix and match and show people that, especially in regeneration, no one really knows, and in entrepreneurship in general, no one really knows what they're doing. Let's just face it. No one knows what. I've done so many of these conversations, and I get people that are at way big scale, like they've raised a bunch of money, they're making a lot of revenue in their business, and they're still to this day, they don't know what they're doing. And we should all realize that. We should all have that beginner's mind, realize that we're all learning, right? And just kind of open up. We could also learn from each other, right? And so we got to, especially in regeneration, there's new things to be discovered, new things to be shared, new ways of looking at things. And you could be the person that opens someone's eyes in a different way where they never really thought, and you are doing that. And so recognize that, step into that space, I think is something that I wanted to share as we've been chatting about this conversation with you, Hilary. Do you feel complete? Do you have any other follow-up questions to add to
No,
that?
that's a huge amount. I've made all kinds of notes. So this is just going to be like, I have to go walk it out now and think about
Okay. I understand.
Plate is full.